Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to the Retro Wrestling Room. Today we have another very special guest on here, possibly the youngest vet in the whole business. He's OTT and Noah Stalwart at this point. He is more than hype, and with a beautiful life, this is LJ Cleary. How's it going, mate?
Good, how are you? Thank you for having me.
That's alright, no problem at all. How's it going?
Yeah, all good. Everything's going well. Enjoying life, living a beautiful life, as always.
Good. How did you celebrate St. Paddy's Day yesterday?
I wrestled yesterday for WWN Proving Ground. I had a triple threat match with Rob Drake and Jake St. Patrick, which is funny. Like, he wasn't actually Irish, but it was St. Patrick's Day, and that's his name. And yeah, that was and celebrated with a victory, which is always good.
There you go.
Yeah.
Fantastic news. You're currently in the States at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You're there till the end of April, is that right?
Yeah, as of now, till the end of April.
Yeah. And you're there over WrestleMania weekend as well, I believe, in Vegas. Have you got many shows booked up at the moment?
Yeah, I've got some stuff lined up. It's already been announced that I will wrestling for West Coast Pro on the 17th, which is the Thursday at 3 p.m. And then I've got some other stuff lined up that just hasn't been announced yet. But really looking forward to debuting for West Coast Pro.
Yeah. How's the US tour been so far?
Yeah, really fun. Really fun. Obviously an adjustment compared to being in Europe, as it would be. But so far I've wrestled for WWN, like I just said, CCW and Fest Wrestling. I just did there this past weekend, and it was very fun. And then I'm taking a trip to Boston this week, and I've got some stuff lined up: Wrestling Open, Rebel, Spirit Pro, and then I will be in Philadelphia on Sunday for Labor of Love too. So yeah, just trying to get out there and be as busy as I can, really.
Have you found the differences between the independent scene, not just in Ireland, obviously in the UK as well? How different is it to the US indie scene?
It's just like, I feel like we always thought, like, in the UK and in Ireland and in Europe, like, oh, there's so much, like, especially in the UK, like, there's a lot of promotions, but here, like, there's just so much going on. Like, the place is obviously so big, and I'm used to, in Ireland, you could drive the length of Ireland in maybe 7 hours. Like, you go from the top of the country to the bottom, but here you could be driving for 6 hours and you're not even out of, like, that state. Yeah. So just adjusting to that regarding, like, the actual, like, geography of the scene is kind of crazy. And then obviously, I'm dealing with like completely a group of new people, like new talent, and it's definitely a little different in the sense that here, because it is more regular, some people will kind of have a bit more of a, like, sometimes in Ireland, because Ireland's so small, like, every show feels like a big deal, like, no matter kind of what the scale. Yeah. Whereas here, maybe just because it's so regular and so common, like, for people, it's kind of just, oh, like, it's another one, which is not a bad thing, but that was a big difference I kind of realized early.
Yeah, 100%. I think, yeah, like you said, because, like, every show, near us in the UK, it always feels like a big show because you don't get as many. I jokingly said you're the youngest vet at the moment. There's probably not many people at your age that have got, like, a 10+ year career.
Yeah, like, I just turned 26, and in February there I hit 12 years, like 12 years since the day I started training. And, like, it is common in Europe, especially, for people to start young. Like, Americans over here are always quite surprised that, like, oh my God, like, I started I was 13. I do think regulations have gotten a bit stricter over the last few years. Right, I think now, at least in Ireland, I know it's 16. You have to be 16 to start, and, like, that is better. It is definitely better for people. But I'm glad I kind of snuck in there before that started, because by the time I was 18, I've been already wrestling 5 years. So yeah, I was happy with how it went.
What was the Irish scene like when you very first started? Because what would that have been, say, 12 years ago? What's that? 2013.
2013.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so what was the Irish scene like at that point?
There wasn't really a lot going on, to be honest. Like, so I started in Fight Factory Pro Wrestling, which was out in Bray at the time. It was formerly NWA Ireland, set up by Finn Balor.
Yeah.
And yeah, there wasn't a lot going on. Like, just the best way to describe it, there's a couple small promotions that would run maybe once every 3 months in like a local, GA hall as we call them. And like yeah, that was it really. It wasn't really until the talent was always there. It was the thing. Like there was always like a serious amount of talent kind of brewing. Like even when
Yeah.
the scene wasn't kind of hopping. But then when OTT started in 2014, again there was like a slow kind of bubbling, simmering as that was happening. And I think really by the time 2016 came around, like that's when I went to my first OTT show as a fan. That's when stuff was really happening because it was a platform for the talent to really showcase, how good they were in Ireland.
Because I think I first heard about OTT was probably 2018, maybe 2019.
Yeah, it was very like hot at that time.
Yeah, I think it's almost a match that's kind of forgotten about a little bit now because of certain circumstances. But that David Starr Jordan Devlin match, because it got 5 stars by Dave Meltzer. Everybody started talking. It was the same with White Wolf in Spain when Zack Sabre Jr. and A-Kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. When that got it, everyone was like, "What is this promotion?"
Yeah, exactly. What is this place? Like that's the eyes I put on it. But again, like because I was on that show, I remember that was in October 2019, and yeah, like that's what OTT really, and it still is to this day. Like I feel obviously I'm always going to be biased towards like my home promotions and stuff like that, but I do think it's like a powerhouse in Europe, like best European promotion. Like these like some of these clips like you're seeing here is like a lot of these ones are more modern now, like when I wrestling Pac and myself there with Keen Noon and wrestling Nick Nemeth. There were some older ones there when I was in More Than Hype. Like those guys don't wrestle anymore, but that was pre-pandemic. But like you can see, like look at the packed crowds. Like they run the National Stadium maybe 2-3 times a year, 2,200 people, and to do that in Dublin, Ireland is an extremely impressive feat. And like for me, OTT gave me like that platform to wrestle the best people in the world, to be able to help me to get the stages that I'm at now.
Like I've heard you talk about it before. When I think it was in a different podcast, when you were talking about imports being on the shows. And it was exactly the same here in the UK as well. A lot of the shows were import heavy, say. And then it got to the point then where it was imports versus the biggest stars, and that's what made it so special. And obviously in OTT that's what's happening now, because you've built up so many Irish stars to that level. It's exciting then when the imports come over, because it's kind of facing their top guys at that point.
Yeah, because that's what it was essentially at the start. Like, well, not at the start, I would say. At the start, it was Irish, but it still had the likes of Pete Dunne and stuff brought in before he was even a name.
Right.
And then for it to kind of boost up onto a more kind of global level, like obviously you are going to use big names and big imports, but then like you said, it was just then at the right time, the kind of meeting of like, okay, we have the Irish guys ready now and we have these big imports in, we've built good relations, put them together. And then what that does, or at least what I feel it does, or it did for me, was it then was able to put me on a level that, okay, now I can be one of the anchors for these shows when these bigger names are not available. And then now I'm in a position now that like, or at least maybe not to the same scale as those bigger names, but where now when I go back to OTT, because I'm not there as regularly, I have to now try and do that as well, to bring other people into that position that I was in, because I'm not around as much.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good position to be in, mind.
Yeah, it's cool. And like I coach at home too. Like I coach across like 3 different schools when I'm at home in Ireland. School of Irish Wrestling, which is the OTT school, Blackout in Limerick, and then my home school, Fight Factory. And because again in Ireland, like now, like Fight Factory run maybe like kind of maybe every 6 to 8 weeks, and we do it out of the training school. And again, you kind of cram like it's a good atmosphere, like a good atmosphere. Like you cram like 150 people into a room,
Yeah.
bring your own beer, Dublin City Centre, and then like we can do things like there was a show a couple of months ago where James Storm came out as a surprise, and it's like that's the type of like a
Right.
live wrestling atmosphere that you want to create, and it also kind of shows like it doesn't need to be on this like huge scale every time. Because like obviously you've got an expectation when you go to like an OTT show now, and as you should, because they are like they are kind of they only really hit home runs. I guess is the best
Yeah.
way to describe it. But
Yeah.
what's good about the Irish scene is it kind of like now no matter what kind of level it's at, I feel like the quality of wrestling and in-ring product is kind of matched everywhere, and especially like obviously speaking about my home school, like I think it's the best in Europe.
The great thing about OTT for me, it really feels like, even though yeah, you do bring in imports and things, but it's got its own flavour as well. It's it really does remind me of ICW in Scotland in
Yeah,
that 2004, say 10 years ago, when they were at their
yeah,
real peak, that real
peak, yeah,
feeling. That's what it
for
feels like
sure.
to me for OTT at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's always a big emphasis on Irish characters. Like
Yeah.
that, and obviously then you have to kind of find the balance of, well, obviously in Ireland people are going to know what this character is because they're from here, but then you have to those people who maybe go kind of down that route also then need to find the balance of, okay, well, how do I make this make sense to non-Irish people? And I
Right,
think
yeah.
like so like now you take the likes of someone that's coming up in Ireland is a good friend of mine, CBL, and he's kind of just now breaking into OTT. He's actually wrestling Charlie Sterling this weekend. There's a big OTT show this weekend, and so he's from like a really small like country town in Ireland. So you obviously kind of his mannerisms and stuff, like obviously Irish understand, but like he's done a really good job of being able to bridge the gap of, okay, obviously his accent's a certain way, so people know straight away, oh, he's from a different part of the country, or even to someone, to people outside Ireland, like I can be bad for this. I'm from Dublin, and sometimes like I'm like, oh, well, like Dublin's like the only place, like it's like the only place in Ireland,
Right,
and
yeah.
but even people, obviously, even a lot of people outside like might only know Dublin, so like someone like CBL has done a really good job of taking the thing that makes him stand out from where he's from, but then also being able to make people from the UK or he's wrestled in Spain or in Germany understand what he is. And now because of that, I think now he's starting to kind of move up the card. He has moved up the card across all of Ireland. He's Irish Junior Heavyweight Champion, RCW Champion, and now he's breaking into a big role in OTT as well. So that is a good thing that OTT does, you're saying, regarding its own flavour,
Yeah.
especially with those Irish characters.
100%. You said in, I think it was 2022, your favourite match at that point was the Matt Cardona match that you had.
Yeah.
Do you still agree with that sentiment? Is that still
Yeah,
your
yeah,
favourite?
100%. Yeah, that's definitely my. It recently just got uploaded onto YouTube for free. So if
Right.
anyone's listening, you want to watch it, like it literally just went up on OTT. Have a lot of free matches up, a lot of really good back catalogue, and that one just got uploaded. Yeah, that is by far my favorite match, best night in my career, for sure. Like as someone who like I'm someone who is very I love the inner workings of wrestling. Like I'm very big into the technical wrestling and like learning it, and like I would be quite pedantic over the last is the word to be like learn everything the right way. But also like I'm a wrestler because I was a fan, and like
Yeah.
one of my favorite wrestlers was Zack Ryder. Like for years, like I was the biggest fan ever. Had all the merch, everything you could have imagined, and then just for like full circle moments of to be wrestling him in my hometown with my family and stuff in the crowd, and then it was just incredible. And then there's a lot that went. There's a bigger story behind that match as well, of like
Yeah.
what kind of made it so special. And like, yeah, it's by far still. It's gonna be like in a good way. I always say this in a good way. Like it's probably gonna be a long time till I have one that like means as much to that. But like that's
Of
all right because
course.
I know I've had ones that have come close for sure.
Yeah.
But like it's you can't have them every day because they're not as special.
Like you almost I mean, yeah, look at that crowd again from OTT. But you almost mentioned how special that match was.
Yeah.
There's an unbelievable story to that involving a T-shirt. Can you go into that detail a
Yeah.
little bit for
So
people who may not know?
yeah. So and if you go watch the match, there's a little like promo video before it, so like it kind of explains it. I was at the front row of the WWE show in November 2013. I had a Zack Ryder sign. I'm wearing a Zack Ryder t-shirt, and he spots it and he throws his t-shirt at me, and I caught it, which is like, as anyone that goes to a wrestling show as a kid, especially, like that's a so you see that on TV, oh my God, like imagine you were in the crowd and you caught a t-shirt. And I caught it, and then, here we are, fast forward 9 years later. I'm wrestling him, and I explained that to him, and obviously, he thinks it's very cool. He's a big wrestling fan as well, and someone who's like, I think, one of the top wrestlers in the world. And I think that added element of the match is what did, because obviously, like I was able to show, look at all this merch that I bought, look at all this, like I was such a big fan, but then actually having a clip of like people seeing like, well, there's me as a young teenager. I was just 13 at the time, 13, 14, and I caught it. Then, like if you watch the match, this point where like he rips his shirt off and he's like throwing at me like, oh, you want the shirt now? And like just adds a lot of elements to it. But the biggest and best part about that match, and why it's like I could talk about the match for the rest of my life. Like I could spend 1 hour alone breaking down like why it's so important, was and like peeling back the curtain a little bit here. In the match we build around, I use a line tamer. I call it a beautiful life timer as a finisher, and I have it on him. And in my head, we're going to the next part of the match, but he taps out, which I didn't know. I didn't know that was going to happen.
All right.
In the moment. So it was he and the OTT promoter coordinated it, but I know that it was Cardona's idea, and I think that was kind of his way of, as someone who's such a big fan, and I told him how much I looked up to him, was almost like and I think when you wrestle these bigger names, it's no disrespect to anyone, but these guys they could be wrestling anyone, any type of person, four times a week, and I think when there comes a little bit more of a personal connection, and they see that, okay, like this guy actually cares, and like he maybe can understands what we're doing a little bit, there's going to be more likeness for them towards you, and it was almost felt like I don't know, it was like not like a thank you, but it was like I'd been giving him
An
so much appreciation.
Yeah.
Like it was like an appreciation, and after the match, and he gave me the shirt from the match. So now I've got the shirt that I caught when I was a kid, and now the shirt from when I wrestled him. The fact that the fact that I didn't know I was gonna win in my hometown with my family there, like just it's like the cherry on top of and also it's out there on social media. Like he's also called it one of his favorite matches he's ever had, which is a real badge of honor for me as well. For me to be that for one of my favorite wrestlers is wild.
Well, that's the dream, isn't it? To continue it on, or like say you've faced like somebody, say in 10 years' time, when somebody from your school comes up and you're like the bigger headliner and they try to break in, if you're their favorite matchup, that would be an amazing moment.
It is. That's like, because it's a crazy thing, because like, we never really look at ourselves that way, and it's just kind of the person that I am with these people that you get to share locker rooms with, these bigger names and people you watched on TV, and people that have inspired you. Like I always, it's in my person to tell them like how much of an impact they've had on me, and that sometimes in wrestling can be a bit of a, no, you don't do that. But I think as long as you're respectful, like if someone said that to me, was telling me that, like you said, in 5-10 years, like it would mean the world to me. So I have to let them know.
Because I think the only or the closest thing I could think of to that kind of moment was the MJF CM Punk feud, where there was that old picture that they kept showing. That's really what it reminded me of.
Because I'd also met Cardona at meet and greet. Like I'd met him at an autograph signing as well when I was younger.
Right.
Like there was so much behind it, and that's why it's very special. It's the best night in my career so far, for sure. Yeah.
There was another, I guess it was a dream match that almost took place, and you were, I think it was almost like a week or so from happening, the match with Pac at OTT, before we obviously went into that big time that we don't try not to speak about these days.
Yeah, yeah.
But you managed to finally pull that match back. You know, you managed to get it in the end. What was it like to finally, after seeming like that match had kind of skipped you by, finally managing to get that match with Pac?
Yeah, so it was meant to happen on March 14th, 2020, right? And my birthday is March 12th. And I woke up it was my 21st birthday, and that's when we found out the show was cancelled. It was 2 days before.
I didn't
Right? So
realise it was
tough.
that close.
Yeah, it was tough because like that was obviously at the time biggest match I'd had, and like obviously still up there. Like there's kind of three matches that I've been very lucky to have, and like the Cardona one, the Pac one, and then the one with Nick Nemeth. They're all kind of in that same category. And with Pac at that time especially, like wow, like oh he just like he done the year in Dragon Gate, just showed up in AEW, like so like it was very like the time was hot, and but you said there like it did like it could have been looked at as like, oh, this passed me by, but I was like, there was not one day after that got cancelled where I felt sorry for myself for maybe a day, and I was like, well, that is gonna happen. I was like, it will, like it has to happen. Like I was just like refused to believe that it wouldn't. You know, I was just like, it will. It took 2.5 years, but I'm so glad it did happen when it did, because like before I was a completely different performer 2.5 years later. Circumstances were very different. Like he was at the time, it was the AEW All Atlantic champion. Then it ended up being on AEW Darks. Like that wouldn't have happened if it did in 2020. And yeah, I just told myself every day like it's gonna happen. And I remember one day Joe, the OTT promoter, he just messaged me saying like he just said, I have a killer match for you on this next show. And I was like, oh, what? I was like, oh, great. Like, what is it? And he said, I can't tell you today because like I'm just finalizing something, but like it's really good. Like I'll send it to you in a day or two. And then he sent me the graphic, and obviously lost my mind. I did have a slight feeling. I remember a very slight feeling when he messaged me, but I was like, nah, actually, and I was like, no, because I was like, he just won the title in AEW. I was like, there's no way. But then it ended up happening, and that one was like, again, that's probably at the time maybe the match that kind of like I'd say leveled me up the most. It gave me in the moment the thing that I was missing as a wrestler, because so coming out of the pandemic, I'd been in the faction, and then the other two, they stopped wrestling. So I didn't really have like that much of an identity post pandemic. Like I was still using like the More Than Hype name, but it wasn't the same. And people were telling me like, oh, get rid of it and change it. And I wasn't, but I wasn't, because like I was like, I don't have the thing to fix, like, you know, I can't get rid of it, because then I was in my head, I was like, I don't have anything. I was always using the living his beautiful life, but even then I don't think I fully understood what that was the way I do now. And obviously because now that's like that's my thing, it's my moniker, my personality, it's real. And I remember the thing that I always kind of lacked at, or I didn't feel like I was the best at, that now I feel like is one of my biggest strengths, is like that kind of real babyface fire. Because in the faction, one of the guys that doesn't wrestle anymore, like he was really good at that. So like he did that in the matches. So I didn't have to. So kind of those like I would say maybe 6 to 9 months from like summer 2021, I was really like trying to figure that out, but I couldn't. And I'll never forget, like, okay, for this Pac match, I'd gotten like really new, nice custom gear. Like I was in definitely like the best shape I'd been in at that time. And the Beautiful Life thing was kind of clicking a little bit more. But I remember like when he walked out of the curtain, like I remember it so vividly. I remember when he walked out, and he looks like a killer, like he does, like, you know, like he's in, I mean, he's probably the most in shape wrestler ever in the world. And like his hair was like down in front of his face, and in that moment, because it was such a real feeling, like because this match had like been taken away from me, and like it was finally happening, just this like rush, like this feeling went through my body that like I can't describe. And since then, like it clicked then, like because it was real, like it was a real emotion, like that fire that like I just I couldn't kind of understand of how to, because I was trying to like force it, and that's why it wasn't working. But then in that match, it became real, and ever since then, it's been something that I feel is actually probably as in Europe and Ireland especially, I would be like, I consider myself one of the top baby faces. It'd be like again one of my biggest assets. So that match did that for me. Like, and obviously when you're wrestling, I'm wrestling one of like the actual best wrestlers in the world,
Yeah.
and so yeah, like that's why that one's really important for the reasons of like it got taken away, I got it, and then just what that did for me, like that changed me like as a performer, as a person, like afterwards. Yeah.
You mentioned, obviously one of your partners in More Than Hype was say more the did you say fiery babyface type
Yeah,
guy?
yeah, he was like very good, like with that kind of like, let's call it like fighting spirit.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
it's kind of cool that obviously they're not wrestling these days, but you're managing to kind of still carry it on, I guess, by taking little bits of their character. Now that they're gone, but you've still managed to hold on to some of those traits.
Yeah, like they were like great memories. Like it's a really big part of my career. It's 2018 to just the start of 2020. Like had some of the biggest matches with that group, and did a lot of cool stuff together. And yeah, like that's kind of the best way I can describe it. Is like absolutely like fantastic time in my career. Well, look, I will always look back on it fondly, even though now it's like it's been 5 years since like More Than Hype was the
Yeah.
thing, which is crazy. It's just because time is moving so fast. But yeah, some of the best times I have for sure.
You were part of another group as well. Obviously GLG in pro wrestling,
Yes,
Noah.
yeah.
For people who may not know what GLG stands for and
Mm.
what that group consisted of, try and give a bit of a backstory on. That's one of my favourite clips. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. So GLG stands for Good Looking Guys, and it was I was like I came in late to the
Yeah.
group. Like I came in the October 2023, and they'd been around for maybe 10 months at that point. So I was like the last person to join up until up until July when it ended. And I mean the name is literally exactly what like it says. Like it was a group of good-looking guys. You had Jake Lee, the leader, who was like at the time when I came in, he was heavyweight champion. Anthony Green and Jack Morris were the tag champions. Jack also won the national title while he was tag champ as well. And you had Yohei Tadasuke as like the junior heavyweight tag champion. So like I kind of came in as like I was almost like a bridge between like I could be a junior heavyweight if they needed me to be, but I could also be in the heavyweight matches. And to me, like
Right.
good being in GLG was one of like definitely one of the best parts of what I've like of my wrestling career too, because I just felt like again it's also now even post like and it's been since July. There's like elements. There's actually that's like more so of anything I've done. There's elements of being in GLG that now I've taken with me and kept, and I know I think are like kind of leveling me up and propelling me like just little like mannerisms and stuff that I wasn't doing before that I did because I was like, oh, I'm in this group called Good Looking Guys. Because to me, like in my head, the idea was like, okay, like I need to act like I think I'm really good looking. Like that's how it has to make sense in my
Yeah, of
head.
course, of
You know,
course.
like I have to act this way. And obviously in Japan, uh, they can take a they take quite a the fans take quite a likeness to the foreign wrestlers. So us kind of leaning into that more like oh like we're good looking, we're handsome, like was just a really fun thing to play around with. And yeah, it was that was a really like that's one that like sometimes I'm like it's a shame it's over like because
Yeah.
it was great. Like I would have loved to have been in it from the start because yeah, it was great.
Because I think what is I wouldn't call it a signature move, but I guess one of the signature moves that we think of with you when you were in GLG was the just the hair swipe.
Yeah,
It
well
was just such a brilliant touch.
but that's exactly what I'm saying. That like I only started doing that because of I was like, oh yeah, like this makes sense. Like I'm trying to, and then it was my fiance, Lyra Valkyria. She was like watching one of the matches, and she was like, that hair thing is so good. Like she was like that,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, and I just because but again in my head I was like, oh yeah, like it's the thing I do in the good looking guys, and then when it ended, she was like, you should keep doing that. Like it really fits you, and now I do, and especially now coming to America in front of brand new audiences, like people who don't have a clue who I am, and like that's a very exciting element of it. Having that little the hair flick thing now, like that's now part of me 100%, and that's probably gonna now be with me forever.
Yeah.
Um, it's just that like these little extra definable features.
What's it been like going to Noah? Because it's kind of become like a home away from home now. I think you've done
Yeah,
quite a few tours there now.
yeah, yeah. I've done 5 tours over about a year and a half. Yeah, it's amazing. Like I have nothing but like good experience there. Obviously, it's an absolute any like wrestler that kind of goes past the point of fan to wrestler and then really kind of delves into the inner workings of wrestling knows that like Japan is somewhere that you should either want to be or you should go because there's like an extra
Yeah.
element of the craft that you can only learn there. That's like
Of
you
course.
have to go there to get it. And that was a big thing for me as someone I would consider myself like a student of the game. Like I'm obsessed with all elements of wrestling. So going to Japan was always a big thing. Like in my coach, who was the head coach in Fight Factory, Phil Boyd, like had been in 0-1 in Japan years before. Obviously, Finn Balor had spent years
Yeah.
in New Japan. So like there was also that element there. Like, well, I want to go and kind of stamp my put my stamp on it. And but then to get to go to Noah because like Noah, for like at a point in time like Noah was like the top company in Japan and
Yeah.
like it's always like
100%.
and now I would say now it's like you got obviously I think like New Japan and then Noah's right there and it's one of the most like respected and renowned wrestling companies in the world because when I started kind of looking for stuff outside of WWE, it was when I saw like Kenta and Marufuji, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
wow, like that's a style that I want to do. So I feel like Noah having the respect that it does with the history with Misawa and everything, like it was an honor just to get to go once. But I remember making a very like in my head, my first tour, I was like, I'm not just doing like I was like I'm not here just to do one. Like I can't be like my mission was to be like I'm coming back, and then obviously I ended up going back 5 times, and like who knows what the future holds too.
Well, a line from another famous Irishman: "We're not here to take part. We're here to take over."
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Like, and that's kind of how I looked at being there. That's why I like being in those first 3 tours, especially with GLG, and like got to do a lot of really cool things. Got to wrestle for New Japan at
Yeah,
Dominion, like their
Dominion.
second biggest show of the year, and yeah, just Japan is an incredible place. Anyone listening that whether you're a wrestler or someone that just wants to go visit, go. One of the best places in the world.
Like you mentioned the Dominion one, you teamed up with Bullet Club War Dogs
Mm.
on that show. Who was it? It was Zack Sabre Jr., Vegeta, and Robbie
And Robbie
Eagles.
Eagles. Yeah.
Yes, of course. What was that match like? Obviously you're such a big fan, and you two,
Yeah, that was
going
that was
to wrestle
ve-
for New Japan.
yeah, that was very, very surreal. Like a very surreal couple of weeks because I kind of got like a nudge that like, oh, you might be going to New Japan that day, and I was like, in my head, I was like, what do I mean? Like, I might be going to. I didn't get it, but then obviously, okay, everything starts happening, and for me, the coolest part about it was like I said before, like I went to OTT for the first time as a fan in 2016, but before that, like my fiance, a girlfriend at the time, was going, and she was like, "You need to come to this, like you would love it." But I was like. So I wasn't 18. OT was over 18s. I was like, nah, like I can't, and like I don't. Probably like a bad trait, but like I'm quite stubborn to like like I'm not like a night out person. I'm like I don't know, like, but I was like, oh, the wrestling does look really good. Like I probably would like it. But then Zack Sabre Jr. got announced for one. I was like, oh well, I have to go to this then because I was
Yeah,
such a big Sabre fan. So like that was a quite the full circle moment. I'll never forget like walking like the stage. I had to walk up steps to walk down the stage, and I'd also known Drilla Maloney for quite a while. Like would have quite a good relationship. Like he's always been very helpful to me. And I remember like right before he went out, he was like, "Oh, like you go out first, like, and then like we'll follow you." And as someone who I would pride myself on my entrance being very like high energy, like very one of like the best parts of my package. Like I was a little bit like because I was like really soaking it in because that's for me like biggest crowd I've wrestled in front of over 7,000 people. on New Japan's second biggest show of the year, and like I'm walking down this really cool ramp, and like the New Japan logo is behind me, and then I know like I'm about to get in and wrestle around with Zack Sabre Jr., like the best technical wrestler in the world. And I'm talking about coming from Fight Factory. Like Fight Factory, I think is the best school in Europe. Yeah, like I am, especially because we've always had such a love and detail for technical wrestling. So like I felt very like I was representing like the school there to go toe to toe with the best technical wrestler in the world. Yeah, it was incredible.
Um, what was I going to say there about Zack Sabre Jr.? Yeah, you mentioned he's the best technical wrestler in the world. I think by far still. Well, it was funny whenever you read the Wrestling Observer newsletter awards at the end of the year. It was Daniel Bryan from like 2006 to 11 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it was just Zack for loads of years.
Just for like 10 years. Yeah.
And I think they may have alternated a couple of times, but it's just those two. I don't think there's anybody that's come close.
It makes sense. I mean, I get it. That's what I'm trying to get. That's the level I'm trying to get to. But he's holding it for now, rightfully so. He's the best.
Say you were. Well, I would a different way. You mentioned Balor earlier. When he left New Japan, and I think everybody knew he was going to WWE, there was a couple of months where he was kind of like in between, and he came over to the UK, and people still talk about those shows now, because I think he was coming out with the different face paints and the different body paints on and stuff. And he did matches in Progress, in PCW with Chris Travis, ICW, all these. And it's kind of known as like this kind of little iconic run. There was probably only a handful of matches. Say you had a phone call tomorrow, one of the big American companies were like, right, you got 2 months off, you're going to come in 2 months. What are some of those dream indie matches for you?
That's a great question. Like, so you're basically saying like, yeah, I'm about to be like snapped up and not available. So like look at it kind of two ways. There's like guys that would be like on the UK, Irish, European scenes that like I haven't got to wrestle, that like I've known for years, and then there's like the bigger names. Regarding like the European scene, people that haven't got to wrestle, I'm definitely going to leave out someone and say after like I never wrestled Flash Morgan Webster. Never wrestled. I really would love to wrestle Wild Boar. And then I'm just in my head because they're local. Obviously, I would try to wrestle all my friends at home, like all my best friends, Martin Steers, Fabio, Michael May, CBL. But then like regarding like bigger names, there is a couple that now to me in my head there's a clock on them because they might retire or they don't take as many bookings. Rob Van Dam would probably be the biggest one. If he was like, because I did get to share locker room with him, which was very surreal. But like, I would love to work with him in some capacity, like whether it was like to tag with him or to wrestle him. What other matches? So anyone else is kind of like anyone else that like I'm thinking of is signed, but like they might do a mini. So I'm trying to not think of people that are signed. But maybe the RVD would be the biggest one. Like I'm trying to think is a realistic. Like he's not signed anywhere, and he still does the odd independent show every now and again. Like to do that in Ireland would be pretty cool. And yeah, I'm just on my friends. Really, like if I knew I was like, oh, this is it, like I'm gone, like I would just try to wrestle all my mates at home, like for the last time for a while.
You mentioned Boar and Morgan Webster. You actually appeared for New Wave Wrestling. Yeah, which is obviously they're doing a really good job with at the moment. They're trying to build their own promotion.
Yeah.
They got a really good school at the moment.
Yeah, they've got the one in Newport, the Midlands, and now in Cardiff. That is just a fantastic group of people, of really good people and really good wrestlers that are making wrestling training fun, but making you really good. Because sometimes there's like wrestling training, like you have to find the fine line of like other people, but you also want to be creating really good wrestlers. That place is one of the best in the world at doing that. And then the bonus is they also just have the talent to put on amazing shows. Like I couldn't say enough good things about Mark Andrews, Flash, Danny Jones, Brendan, like the whole crew there, you know, Danny Luna, Nico Angelo, like they're all just Slits McPins. They're all just a really incredible group of people, and like what they've done for that kind of scene. And I know, like, obviously they're all kind of linked with Attack and Chaos and New Wave, and it's just a really, like, I genuine, like what they've done. And it's, you know, I think Brendan was the first person, the Bronco was kind of the first person to take the reins there for New Wave. So like, massive respect for him. He's also he's just also like probably one of the funniest people I know, but like, so massive respect for him.
And underratedly funny, I think.
Yeah, very. Yeah.
Yeah, because you mentioned those, you know, it'd be really good, because I'm from Wales, obviously, from Newport as well. And, you know, the fact that we've got that school now, it would be amazing if they could build up, say, like this next ICW, OTT.
100%.
So the quality is there, you know, the potential is there. It's just
possible, yeah.
100%.
It's possible, yeah. They could do it. I think, like, yeah. It takes time, that's the thing, it takes time, but yeah. It's just the drive they have as well as people. Like, they're just such good people. I can't say it enough. Like, and it's just a bonus that they're all obviously fantastic wrestlers that have incredible minds. You know.
You know, and they've, you know, the name values there now. Obviously, they've had little stints in NXT UK and TNA. You know, they've had loads of different things. So, you know, the name value and stuff is picking up. So, hopefully, it's only a matter of time now. Yeah.
I hope to, like, it's hard when I'm, you know, my schedule now is like in a good way all over the place, because it's like, okay, am I in Japan? Am I at home? Am I in America? It's trying to line stuff up. So I hope at some point this year I can get to go back to, you know, to New Wave or Attack or Chaos. I just want to be around those people.
Yeah.
I
mean, Attack is usually some of the maddest shows here in the UK.
Yeah, it's so good.
They kind of took that Shikara vibe from the US and kind of made it their own really unique little thing.
Yeah, I think that was definitely the influence as well. Obviously, Attack's been going a long time, and you know, you had the spearheads early, like, you know, with the Pete Dunne and Mark Andrews, and obviously now Mark still taking those reins. And I'm so glad they brought it back, you know, post pandemic, because like, it's just add that extra element of fun to wrestling. Because Attack, you know, you're going to get a bit of fun, but you know, you're also just going to see like actual top level quality wrestling. You know, that's why it's so good.
I don't usually go into like personal things with people, but you mentioned Lyra a couple of times, so I think it's fair to bring her out. How proud are you of her over the last, well, I mean, obviously, like, her career, but like the last few months, it just seems to have gone from here to here, and, you know, being chosen to be the first WWE Women's Intercontinental title. That word Intercontinental title within WWE has just got this massive history. So now there's a women's version, and she was chosen to be the first women's champion. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable is the only way to describe it. Like, obviously I'm extremely proud. Like, I've been there since her first day of training, and then as I became a coach, also helped train her a little. And to me, it makes so much sense that she's the first ever Women's Intercontinental Champion, because, you know, to us wrestling fans, the Intercontinental title was always the workhorse title, and that's what she is. She's a workhorse. Like, so, like, sometimes I'm like not surprised when I'm watching her on Raw. Like, it is all like there's certain circumstances, like when she wrestled Bayley a few weeks ago. Like, that was one where I was like, wow, like, you're wrestling Bayley, because like we were watching NXT religiously together at the time. You know, Bayley versus Sasha and Takeover Brooklyn. So that stuff is very surreal. But sometimes I am just like, well, yeah, like, I knew this. Like, I'm not that surprised, because like I knew. So, but that's why I think the Intercontinental title specifically fits her, because she is a workhorse, and that's why she's champion.
It's kind of like, I always think of, you know, when you mention moments like that, it was like when we saw clips of Paige in WWE, Saraya, when she first started being on Raw, and there was a program on Channel 4 here in the UK, and it was of her family in that front living room watching. And even though they were like, we knew this was going to happen, it's still that kind of surreal moment at the same time.
Oh, yeah, it is.
You know?
Yeah. It's an elated feeling. Like, I knew this was going to happen, but wow, like, now I'm seeing it, and it's a different level of excitement and proudness.
Yeah. I mean, I think the rest of the year it can just keep growing and
It's just going
getting
up, yeah.
bigger and
It's been
bigger.
going up. He's only been on an upwards trajectory, so yeah, can't wait to see what happens.
As we start to bring this podcast to a close, what are the plans for the rest of the year? Obviously, you're in America till the end of April. Do you have many other plans, or oh, here she comes, always making an
Oh.
appearance, or plans for the rest of the year?
So like, and this is like me being completely honest because I know sometimes like you listen to podcasts and people be like, oh, I don't know, like, and like honestly, like whatever that booking graphic of my US tour is this day to this day is really as far as I concrete know what I'm doing. Now there's
Right.
a lot of like penciled in loose stuff, maybe, but since since going to Japan again, things just change so much, and they could change. Like I could get like a message right now regarding something that, like, okay, and that could send the next 4 months into like a right. Well, I have to block this off now because of this. So I don't know. For me, what I would like to do, I am very much so enjoying being here in the States. I would like to make my mark here, like use these first couple months to kind of, dip my toe in. But I feel I'm very confident in my talent that I can make a serious splash over here. It's just being here first to do that. Europe, I will always be going back and forth, but in Europe it is, and Ireland is more specifically, like I'm very satisfied with what I've done there. Anything else now is a bonus. After that Cardona match, after those three with Pat, Cardona and Nemeth, like, well, for me it's not getting better than that at home, right?
Right.
Unless like, no, it's not getting better than that. Or like my favorite wrestler ever is Jericho, right? Like unless
Yeah,
something
he
like
gets
that
over
pops
it.
up. But
Yeah.
like when that match, even though the match with Nemeth happened after Cardona, when the Cardona match happened and the circumstances of everything behind it, I was like, right, there's no getting higher than this here. Now, and then the Nemeth match was extra special because, oh, now I was coming back after being in Japan, so there was a different, like, there's a different element to it. So right now, you'll see me pop back and forth in Europe every now and again, but and I could end up going back to Japan. But what I would like to do, with what I'm feeling right now, is make my mark here in the States and just slowly start shit. Because it's essentially a reset. Like I've
Yeah.
reset here,
Yeah.
and it's exciting because like you have to get out of your comfort zone. Like I know I could stay in Europe, and I can easily fill my weekends. Like I've made good connections and stuff there. But I was just like, okay, I'm ready for the next thing after the 5 years of Japan as well. Again, like I would be very surprised if I never went back there. I would imagine I will, but I was like, I'm ready for the next thing. And I think as a wrestler, you kind of have to be that way, or else you will just it's just whatever someone wants. It's case by case. Like if someone is happy being in one place, that's completely fine. But for me, I'm very like, no, I need to, I need a challenge. Like I need a challenge of being here. I love the idea of being unknown. Like no one knows who I am here. So like with these crowds, I have to win them over for the first time again, which I haven't had to
Yeah.
do in ages. Like I had to do it when I went to Japan, but then after a couple of weeks and I'm coming back, it was normal. So
Right.
yeah.
Hey, I meant to ask you earlier. So when you're obviously, are you the head trainer now at Fight Factory?
Yeah, I would say when I'm home now, I would be like the head advanced coach.
Right.
So when
Okay.
I'm there, yeah. But like, so my coach, Phil Boyd, he's like the head coach. Him and Katie Harvey, his fiance, like they run the school and they both coach as well. But like, I just kind of took that role the last few years for like the advanced training, like, and it just kind of worked that way because I was wrestling the most and like I was going off and doing so
Right.
much. So I would, so one of the head coaches, yeah.
So when you do things like these Japan tours and the US tour and stuff, how do you balance it all?
I don't know. Like, I think it's just the person I am. Like, I would consider myself very positive, and I won't really let a lot of stuff get me down. I don't really get stressed. So when I look at when I pull up my phone, I look at the schedule and I go, right, here we go, 12 days straight here. I have to make sure I do this, and this. I kind of just take it in my stride, like, because my outlook on it is, well, I asked for this life. Like, I picked this. I can't complain about being sore or being tired or I don't have the time to do this because this is what I wanted. So I really try just keep a real positive outlook you know, I could look at a busy schedule of like, oh, this is going to kill me, or oh, I can't wait to see what I do here, and then imagine that day I have to relax after. It's going to feel amazing. Uh, so balancing it all out is just it's kind of part of the grind that I enjoy. I love like, okay, I'm home for 2 weeks. I'm gonna fit all this in. I'm gonna go do shows in France. I'm gonna go coach 4 sessions in these schools. I'm gonna go do this, but I have to make sure I get this in as well. Like I kind of like I really enjoy that part of it. Um, and that's kind of strange because not a lot of people like that part of it because I think it can really stress them out. But I just
Yeah.
do enjoy it. I just do like I like seeing how can I balance it all out and fitting everything in.
Um, I was speaking to Les Thatcher yesterday, who's unbelievably been in the wrestling business for 65 years come this year. And I was trying to think, like, because obviously this channel is called the Retro Wrestling Room. We
Yeah,
usually look back at what I consider retro, which is very different to what Les would call retro.
yeah.
You being a little bit younger again, how far back do you consider retro wrestling?
Wretch, like so, like my era is like the rootless aggression era. Like that's
Mm.
like, I started watching like physically watching in like 2002, but I was three, right? So like I'm watching and like I'm just watching the thing that like is attracting me on TV, and then
Yeah.
it was really like, and I'm always consistently watching, and it was kind of like '04, '05. I'm like six, five, six. Now I'm starting to really understand it. Like when Cena and Batista were the champions, like that's when I was like,
Right.
oh yeah, like they're the best. I was like, they're like John Cena is my childhood hero, like and Batista was one as well. But like to me, like retro to me was now retro. I'd be like the golden era. I'd be like that's
Okay.
retro,
Yeah.
like the '80s. Like I'd be
Yeah.
like at this point because when I started watching, my uncle got me interested, and he was an '80s fan, and it actually like wasn't that long like before at that point, but now I would be like, yeah, I would probably consider like '80s, early '90s, like new, like maybe like new generation era a little bit, but even that I'm like it's not that long ago.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. I'm not gonna be someone that's like, oh yeah, like ruthless aggression era is retro. Like it's not because it was yeah, yeah,
I'm glad you didn't make me feel that old. Be like, yeah,
yeah.
2003 is like, oh, proper retro stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would say '80s to new generation,
That's all right, though. You're
and
not
then
making me feel too old. That's fine.
yeah,
That's fine. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
no problem. It's a
Yeah,
pleasure.
it's been really cool speaking to you. Obviously, we got to speak about your tours in Noah, in the homegrown promotions, OTT, and whatever. We talked about your future plans. Are there any other plugs you want to shout out to people?
No, I guess anyone listening, just keep an eye on Irish wrestling, please. Like OTT, Five Factory, RCW, um, and like just treat kind of everywhere like that, whatever country you're in. Like support like local wrestling because you genuinely could be watching like a future WrestleMania main event and you don't know it. And it'd be very cool if you could say that again. Like look at Lyra Valkyria. We were on shows wrestling in front of 11 people 10 years ago, and now she's on Raw as the Intercontinental Women's Champion, the first ever. Can only be one first ever. So you don't know who you're watching, and so support. Yeah. So anyone, if anyone's listening to this that doesn't know much about Irish wrestling, take a gander. Again, OTTs, YouTube channels, a lot of free matches on there. So Five Factory uploads all the shows for free, like on YouTube, like full shows. So yeah, take a look if you want to. If you're interested in me, like my name on everything is just LJ Cleary, like LJ_Cleary. I think it'll come up if you look it up. Um, and and yeah, and if you ever want to watch any of my Japanese stuff, Wrestle Universe is actually a really good. Like it's a really it's well worth the money for this for the subscription. It's got like Noah, DDT, Zero One. It's got a lot of stuff on there. So yeah,
Wrestle Universe is so cheap as well. For people
yeah, it's very
who
cheap.
don't subscribe to it, you know, we
Yeah,
got Marigold. Yeah,
I got
yeah,
as
like you
well. Yeah,
said, TG, PW as well. Yeah,
yeah,
unbelievable. Right, thank you again. Stay on the line. I'll just do a quick outro for everybody here, and then we'll give
yeah.
a proper goodbye in a minute. But thank you so much for watching today, guys. Another unbelievable interview that we had today. Please leave a like and subscribe. Comment on the video. Tell you what, leave your favourite LJ Cleary matches down below. Is it going to be
Oh,
that pack match? Is it going to be that Nick
hopefully there's a
Nemeth
good one.
match? Is it going to be something from Noah? You know, let us know down below. But as always, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you soon. Bye, guys.